A single mother's revenge against her ex-husband. 2025. In the Cost of Envy, in Boise, Idaho, Rachel Monroe, a 42-year-old single mother and teacher, is devastated when her ex-husband Tom leaves her for Lila, who spreads rumors questioning Rachel's parenting, sparking a CPS investigation. Rachel exposes and revenge. The story begins. Everyone, please subscribe to my Sweet Revenge YouTube channel. The Boise sky was a bruise. Its heavy gray clouds pressing down on Rachel Monroe as she stood outside Centennial High School. Her arms crossed tightly against the chill of a late autumn afternoon. At 42, Rachel's auburn hair was streaked with premature gray, pulled into a messy bun that mirrored the chaos of her life. Her hazel eyes, once bright with the dreams of a young woman who'd married her high school sweetheart, Tom Monroe, were now dulled by betrayal, shadowed by the weight of a life unraveled. 20 years ago, she and Tom had planned a future together in Boise, their laughter echoing through the halls of this very school. Now, Tom was a tech mogul, his startup Horizon Tech a darling of investors, and he'd traded Rachel and their 15-year-old son, Ethan, for Lila Hayes, his 28-year-old assistant whose smile was as sharp as the glass Rachel felt cutting into her heart every day. Rachel's life was now confined to a cramped apartment in a Boise suburb, its peeling wallpaper curling like the edges of her hope, the fluorescent lights flickering with a mocking rhythm. The rent was late again, the bills stacked on the kitchen counter like a monument to her struggle. She taught English at Centennial High, her days filled with grading essays and coaxing bored teenagers through Shakespeare. But her nights were a battle to keep Ethan from slipping away. Ethan, once her shadow, always trailing her with questions and laughter, was now a stranger, his blue eyes, so like Tom's, glued to his phone. His heart drawn to his father's glittering world of sports cars and lake house weekends. Lila's influence was a poison, seeping into Ethan's mind, painting Rachel as the failure who couldn't keep their family together. The apartment smelled of burnt toast and desperation as Rachel set a plate of spaghetti on the table, the steam rising in thin wisps like her fading resolve. Ethan slouched in his chair, his hood up, his fingers tapping out a text. "How was school, honey?" Rachel asked, her voice straining for the warmth they'd once shared, her hands smoothing the worn tablecloth as if it could smooth her life. Ethan didn't look up, his thumbs moving furiously. "Fine, Dad's picking me up tomorrow. Lila got me these new Jordans." The mention of Lila was a needle, piercing Rachel's chest. She forced a smile, her lips trembling. "That's nice, Ethan," she said, but her voice cracked, her mind conjuring Lila, sleek in designer heels, her blonde hair perfect, her laughter a weapon as she played stepmother to Rachel's son. "You sure you don't want to stay home this weekend? We could watch a movie. Like old times." Ethan's eyes flicked up, impatient. "Nah, Mom, Dad's got a new boat. It's gonna be dope." The word, Mom, felt hollow, a formality, and Rachel's heart sank as she cleared the plates. The clink of ceramic loud in the silent apartment. The real wound came at a school fundraiser at the Boise Depot, its historic brick walls glowing under string lights, the air thick with the scent of barbecue and ambition. Rachel volunteered, her faded jeans and sweater a stark contrast to the polished crowd of Boise's elite, their jewelry glinting like their whispered judgments. She was arranging a table of auction items, local art, gift baskets, when Lila approached, her crimson dress clinging to her like a second skin, her perfume sharp and suffocating. Tom trailed behind, his tailored suit a reminder of the life he'd built without Rachel. "Oh, Rachel," Lila said, her voice loud enough to draw eyes, her smile a blade thinly veiled by pity. "You're so dedicated, working these little events. It must be exhausting, raising Ethan all alone. People talk, you know, about how you're struggling to keep up." The word, struggling, landed like a slap, and Rachel's face burned, her hands freezing on a stack of brochures. The crowd's murmurs grew, their glances sharp as pins. "I'm fine, Lila," Rachel managed, her voice tight, her eyes locked on the table to avoid Lila's smirk. "Ethan's doing great." Lila leaned closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "For now, but a boy needs stability. Don't you think? Someone who can give him a real future." Rachel's breath caught, her fingers digging into the table's edge, the wood biting into her palms. Ethan stood nearby, helping with the auction, his headphones around his neck, his expression unreadable. "Ethan, honey," Rachel called, her voice shaking, desperate to anchor herself to him. Can you grab more flyers? He nodded, barely glancing at her, and shuffled away, his shoulders hunched as if shielding himself from the tension. Tom stepped forward, his voice smooth, oblivious. Rachel, we'll take Ethan for the weekend. Don't worry. He didn't meet her eyes, his attention already drifting to Lila, who looped her arm through his with a possessive smile. Rachel watched them walk away, Ethan trailing behind, his new sneakers gleaming under the lights, each step widening the gulf between them. That night, Rachel drove home through Boise's quiet streets, the city's low skyline blurring through her tears. The Boise River glinted darkly to her left, its surface rippling with secrets, while the cottonwood trees swayed like mourners in the wind. In her apartment, she collapsed onto the sagging couch, its springs groaning under her weight. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the drip of a leaky faucet and the distant hum of traffic. She clutched a photo of Ethan at 10, his grin wide as he held a fishing rod beside her, their laughter frozen in time. Now, that boy was gone, replaced by a teenager who saw her as a shadow of his father's dazzling life. Lila's words echoed, struggling to keep up, and Rachel's sobs broke free. Raw and jagged, shaking her body, her fingers curled into fists, her nails biting into her palms, drawing tiny crescents of blood. She'd spent years swallowing her pain, stitching herself together for Ethan's sake, but now a darker fire stirred within her. Lila wasn't just stealing her son, she was erasing her. Rachel's eyes hardened, her tears drying as she stared into the dark. You won't win, she whispered, her voice a vow, the apartment's shadows swallowing her words as Boise's night closed in, heavy with the promise of a storm. The Boise winter crept into Rachel Monroe's bones, its icy breath seeping through the thin walls of her suburban apartment, where the radiator hissed like a cornered snake. At 42, Rachel was a ghost of the woman who'd once dreamed of a forever with Tom Monroe. Her high school sweetheart turned tech titan. Her auburn hair hung limp, her hazel eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, haunted by Lila Hayes' venomous words at the school fundraiser, a boy needs stability. Don't you think? The memory of Lila's crimson-dressed smirk, her arm possessive around Tom, and Ethan's averted gaze burned in Rachel's chest. A wound that festered with every text Ethan sent to his father. Every mention of Lila's gifts, sneakers, concert tickets, a life Rachel couldn't afford. The apartment, with its peeling wallpaper and flickering lights, was a cage, trapping Rachel's pain and her growing rage. She stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing a pan with furious strokes, the water scalding her hands. But she barely noticed. Lila wasn't just stealing Ethan, she was rewriting Rachel's existence. And Rachel was done bleeding in silence. Her days at Centennial High School were a blur of teaching the crucible. The irony of its witch hunts not lost on her as she faced her own accusers in Boise's whispers. Her students' voices faded as she stared out the classroom window. The Boise River a gray ribbon under a leaden sky, its current mirroring the restless churn in her heart. Ethan was slipping further away, his visits to Tom's lake house leaving him dazzled, his words sharp when he returned. Why can't we live like Dad? He'd snapped the night before, slamming his bedroom door, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Rachel had stood frozen, her hands clutching the counter, the kitchen's fluorescent light buzzing like her fraying nerves. She wanted to scream that Tom had left them, that Lila was a thief in designer heels. But Ethan's closed door was a wall she couldn't breach. Maria Lopez, Rachel's best friend and owner of Maria's Diner on State Street, saw the fire in her eyes. Over coffee in the diner's vinyl booth, the neon sign outside casting a red glow across Maria's face. She leaned forward, her voice urgent. Rachel, you're letting her win, Maria said, her brown eyes fierce. Lila's playing dirty, but you're stronger than this. Rachel's fingers tightened around her mug, the ceramic hot against her palms. She's not just playing, Maria, she said, her voice low, trembling with suppressed fury. She's taking Ethan. She's making him think I'm nothing. Maria reached across the table, her hand warm on Rachel's. Then fight for him, chica, but don't let her turn you into someone you're not. Rachel's gaze dropped to the coffee, its surface rippling like her resolve. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered, the diner's jukebox crooning a mournful Patsy Cline song, its notes weaving through her despair. That night, Rachel's apartment was a cocoon of obsession, lit only by the blue glow of her laptop. Ethan slept, his door ajar, his soft snores a reminder of the boy she was losing. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, her grating abandoned, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she scoured Lila's past. Social media yielded little. Lila's Instagram was a curated lie of brunches and private jets, but Rachel's desperation was a hound. Sniffing out crumbs, she found a whistleblower's blog, buried in obscure search results, hinting at financial irregularities at Horizon Tech. Tom's company. Something's rotten, she muttered, her voice a mix of dread and excitement. The words swallowed by the apartment's shadows. Public records became her battlefield, bank statements, corporate filings, anything she could access on her teacher's salary. Her heart raced as she traced a thread. Unauthorized transfers from Horizon's accounts. Linked to a name she recognized, Lila Hayes. Each discovery was a spark, igniting the fire in Rachel's chest. She worked in silence, her breath shallow, the radiator's hiss her only companion. One night, deep in a maze of financial records, she found it. A series of payments from Horizon to a shell company. Signed off by Lila, funds siphoned into offshore accounts. You thought you were untouchable, Rachel whispered, her voice trembling with triumph. The screen's glow reflecting her hardened eyes. She compiled the evidence, screenshots, documents, emails, into a folder labeled Reckoning. Her hands shook as she typed, her nails bitten to the quick, her coffee cold beside her. She paused, her cursor hovering over the send button. Maria's warning echoing, don't let her turn you into someone you're not. But Lila's voice drowned it out, her taunts a chorus of Rachel's failures. This is for Ethan, she told herself, but the words felt like a prayer to a god she no longer trusted. The final blow came unexpectedly. A knock at her apartment door one frigid evening. A Child Protective Services officer stood there, her clipboard a guillotine, her voice clinical. We've received reports about your son's welfare, Ms. Monroe, she said, her eyes scanning the cluttered living room. Concerns about stability, neglect. Rachel's stomach plummeted, her hands clenching at her sides. Neglect, she choked out, her voice rising. I'm doing everything I can. Who said this? The officer's gaze was impassive. The report was anonymous, but we have to investigate. Ethan emerged from his room, his hoodie up, his eyes wide with confusion. Mom, what's going on? He asked, his voice small, and Rachel's heart shattered at the fear in his face. It's a mistake, honey, she said, her voice cracking, but the officer's questions about her finances, her hours, her emotional state, were a relentless tide, drowning her dignity. After the officer left, Rachel sank onto the couch, her sobs silent but violent, shaking her frame. Ethan hovered in the doorway, his voice hesitant. Mom, are they gonna take me away? Rachel's head snapped up, her eyes blazing through tears. No one's taking you, Ethan, I swear. But he didn't move closer, his gaze dropping to the floor, and the distance between them was a chasm. Lila's hand was in this, Rachel knew it, her rumors spreading like wildfire, branding Rachel an unfit mother. The apartment's walls seemed to close in, the flickering light casting jagged shadows, like the edges of Rachel's sanity. She returned to her laptop, her fingers steady now, fueled by a fury colder than Boise's winter. She drafted an anonymous email to Horizon's board, attaching the evidence of Lila's embezzlement. Her words precise, lethal. You don't get to destroy us, she whispered, her voice a vow as she hit send. The click echoing like a gavel in the silent night. The Boise skyline glittered outside, its lights indifferent, as Rachel's fire of vengeance flared, threatening to consume everything she held dear. The Boise dawn broke cold and sharp, its pale light slicing through the blinds of Rachel Monroe's apartment, casting jagged shadows across the peeling wallpaper. At 42, Rachel stood in her cramped kitchen, her auburn hair tangled from a sleepless night, her hazel eyes fixed on the coffee pot as it gurgled, its bitter scent mingling with the sour taste of her victory. She'd done it. Her anonymous email to Horizon Tech's board had unleashed a firestorm, exposing Lila Hayes' embezzlement and shattering the perfect life she'd stolen from Rachel. The news was everywhere. Tech executive accused of fraud. Lila's name splashed across every screen in Boise. Rachel's heart, once heavy with betrayal, now pulsed with a dark thrill. A vindication she'd craved since Tom Monroe, her ex-husband, left her and their son, Ethan, for Lila's glittering promises. But the apartment, with its flickering lights and worn furniture, felt colder than ever, as if it knew the price of her triumph was yet to be paid. Rachel's morning at Centennial High School was a haze, her voice mechanical as she lectured on the crucible. the irony of its accusations stinging her conscience. Between classes, she slipped into the staff room, the television blaring a local news report. Footage showed Lila, her blonde hair disheveled, her crimson lipstick stark against her pale face. As she shoved past reporters outside Horizon's downtown office, "No comment," she snapped, her voice shrill, her designer heels clicking frantically on the pavement. Rachel's lips curled into a faint smile, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug, the ceramic warm against her trembling hands. She scrolled through her phone. Lila's Instagram, once a shrine to private jets and rooftop parties, now silent. Her followers dropping like autumn leaves. "You thought you could bury me," Rachel whispered, her voice low, venomous, the words swallowed by the hum of the staff room's fluorescent lights. For a moment, she felt powerful, as if she'd reclaimed the dignity Lila and Tom had stripped away. But the thrill was fleeting, a spark snuffed out by the storm brewing at home. Ethan came back from school that afternoon, his backpack slung low, his blue eyes, Tom's eyes, blazing with a fury Rachel hadn't seen before. He stood in the apartment's narrow hallway, his hoodie hood up, his phone clutched like a weapon. "You did this, didn't you?" he shouted, his voice cracking as he threw his phone onto the kitchen table. The screen glaring with a headline, "Horizon Tech Scandal Rocks Boise." Rachel's stomach lurched, her triumph curdling into dread. "Ethan, listen," she started, her voice shaking, stepping toward him, but he backed away, his hands raised as if warding off a stranger. "Don't lie to me, Mom," he yelled, his face twisting with pain. "You ruined Dad's company. Lila's gone, and it's all your fault." Rachel's heart pounded, her hands reaching out, desperate to bridge the gap. "I was protecting us," she pleaded, her voice raw. "Lila was lying about me, spreading rumors, trying to take you away." Ethan's eyes glistened, his voice dropping to a wounded whisper. "I don't care about her lies. You made everything worse. I hate you for this." The words were a blade, slicing through Rachel's core. She staggered back, her hand gripping the counter, the cold linoleum grounding her against the flood of pain. "Ethan, please," she choked out, tears spilling down her cheeks. But he grabbed his jacket, his movements jerky, frantic. "I'm done," he said, his voice flat, final. The door slammed behind him, the sound echoing like a thunderclap in the silent apartment, rattling the cheap picture frames on the walls. Rachel sank to the floor, her knees hitting the worn carpet, her sobs tearing through her. Raw and guttural, the Boise skyline outside her window was a blur of gray, the city's lights flickering like her fading hope. She clutched her chest, her fingers digging into her sweater, as if she could hold together the pieces of her shattering world. Days bled into weeks, and Ethan didn't come home. He was staying with Tom, who'd rented a sterile condo downtown, his lake house sold to cover legal fees from Horizon's collapse. Rachel called, her voicemails piling up, unanswered. "Ethan, please, just talk to me. I'm sorry," she texted, her messages marked read but ignored. She drove to Tom's building, the glass facade reflecting her hollow face. But the doorman turned her away. "He doesn't want to see you," he said, his voice impersonal, and Rachel stood in the freezing parking lot, her breath clouding in the air, her tears freezing on her cheeks. The Boise River flowed nearby, its dark surface rippling with indifference, its current a reminder of the life slipping through her fingers. Rachel sought refuge at Maria's diner, the neon sign buzzing above the door, the smell of grease and coffee a faint comfort. Maria found her in a corner booth, staring into a cold cup of coffee, her face gaunt, her eyes red-rimmed. "Rachel, you can't keep doing this to yourself," Maria said, sliding into the booth, her voice firm but gentle, her hand warm on Rachel's arm. Rachel's gaze stayed fixed on the coffee, its surface still, like her hope. "He hates me, Maria," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I thought I was saving him from Lila, but all I did was push him away." Maria's eyes softened, but her tone was unyielding. "He's angry, Chica, but he's your son. He'll come back. You've got to fight for him, not against yourself." Rachel shook her head, her fingers tracing the table's chipped edge, the wood rough under her nails. "What if I've lost him for good?" she asked, her voice barely audible, the diner's jukebox playing a mournful Johnny Cash song, its notes wrapping around her despair like a shroud. The apartment felt like a tomb without Ethan, its silence oppressive, broken only by the drip of the leaky faucet and the creak of the radiator. Rachel lay awake at night, the ceiling's cracks spreading like her regret. Her mind replaying Ethan's words. I hate you for this. She'd wanted to destroy Lila, to reclaim her dignity, but the fire of her vengeance had scorched her family instead. She clutched Ethan's old baseball glove, left on his bed, its leather worn from years of catch in their backyard. It sent a faint echo of the boy she'd lost. The Boise wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and Rachel curled into herself, her tears soaking the pillow, her victory a bitter ash in her mouth. Lila was gone, Tom's empire was crumbling, but the cost was Ethan's love, and Rachel feared no triumph could ever repay that debt. The Boise winter had softened into spring, its crisp air carrying the scent of budding lilacs and the faint promise of renewal. But for Rachel Monroe, the thaw in her heart was slower, more fragile. At 47, she moved through her modest apartment with a quiet resilience, her auburn hair now streaked with silver, her hazel eyes no longer hollow but still shadowed by the scars of 5 years past. The apartment, once a prison of peeling wallpaper and unpaid bills, was brighter now, its walls adorned with framed photos of Ethan, grinning at his high school graduation, laughing over burgers at Maria's diner, his rebellion softened by time. Ethan, now 20, was a sophomore at Boise State University, studying engineering, and though their bond was scarred, it was healing, stitch by painful stitch. Rachel's vengeance, exposing Lila Hayes' embezzlement and toppling her ex-husband Tom Monroe's tech empire, had cost her Ethan's trust. His angry departure a wound that still ached, but therapy, persistence, and love had begun to rebuild what she'd nearly lost. Even as Boise's skyline shimmered outside, its lights a reminder of the life she was reclaiming. Rachel's days at Centennial High School were no longer a blur of survival. Teaching English had become her sanctuary, her classroom a haven where she guided students through literature's lessons of redemption and resilience. Her lectures on To Kill a Mockingbird carried a new weight, her voice steady as she spoke of justice and forgiveness, her students' eyes wide with the stories she wove. But the nights were harder, the apartment's silence heavy with memories of Ethan's absence. She'd spent months after his departure calling, texting, standing outside Tom's downtown condo, her pleas unanswered. Therapy had been their lifeline. Weekly sessions in a small office on Warm Springs Avenue, its walls papered in faded blue, the air thick with the scent of lavender and honesty. Rachel and Ethan sat across from each other, their words halting at first, raw with pain. I was so mad at you, Ethan had said one session, his voice low, his hands fidgeting with a pen. I thought you wanted to hurt Dad. To hurt me. Rachel's throat tightened, her eyes burning. I thought I was protecting you, she'd whispered, her voice cracking. I was wrong, Ethan. I'd give anything to take it back. His nod was small, his eyes meeting hers, and in that moment, a crack in their wall began to mend. The apartment was a testament to their slow rebuilding. Ethan's room, once a shrine to his absence, was now a place he returned to, his textbooks scattered on the desk, his laughter filtering through the walls during weekend visits. Rachel kept his old baseball glove on a shelf, its leather worn from years of backyard games, a talisman of the boy she'd fought to keep. Maria Lopez, her best friend and owner of Maria's Diner, remained her rock, their late-night talks a ritual of healing. One evening, as snow dusted Boise's streets, its flakes catching the neon glow outside the diner, Maria slid into the booth across from Rachel, her brown eyes warm but piercing. You're coming back to life, Chica, she said, pushing a coffee toward Rachel, its steam curling like hope. Rachel's fingers traced the mug's handle, her smile fragile. I'm trying, Maria, she said, her voice soft but steady. Ethan's talking to me again, but I'm still scared I'll lose him. Maria leaned forward, her voice firm. You've got him, Rachel. You fought for him. Don't doubt that. The jukebox played a soft Dolly Parton tune, its notes wrapping around Rachel's heart, and for the first time in years, she felt a flicker of peace. But the past was never far. Rachel's heart still clenched at the memory of Lila's downfall, her face on the news, her life unraveling in Boise's gossip columns. Lila had fled, rumored to be in Seattle, her glamour stripped away, while Tom's empire had crumbled, his lake house sold, his name a cautionary tale. Rachel had thought their ruin would free her, but it had only deepened her isolation. Ethan's absence a punishment she'd inflicted on herself. Now, as spring painted Boise's hills green, she focused on Ethan, on the small victories, his texts, his hugs, the way he'd started calling her, Mom, again without hesitation. One Saturday, they walked through Julia Davis Park, the Boise River sparkling beside them, its current a mirror to their tentative steps forward. I'm sorry I ran, Ethan said, his voice low, kicking a pebble along the path. I didn't get how much you were hurting. Rachel's chest tightened, her hand brushing his arm. I'm sorry I gave you a reason to run, she said, her eyes glistening. I love you, Ethan, always. His smile, small but genuine, was a balm, and Rachel held onto it. Fragile as it was. The test came unexpectedly, a cold February evening at Maria's diner. The windows fogged with warmth against Boise's chill. Rachel was sipping coffee, her grating spread across the table, when the bell above the door jingled, and Tom walked in. His face was lined, his once confident stride hesitant, his tech mogul sheen replaced by a worn jacket and tired eyes. Rachel froze, her heart pounding, the diner's chatter fading to a hum. Rachel, Tom said, his voice rough, like gravel underfoot, as he approached her booth. Can we talk? Her fingers tightened around her pen, ink smudging the paper, her voice sharp. What do you want, Tom? He slid into the booth, uninvited, his hands clasped tightly. I owe you an apology, he said, his eyes meeting hers, raw with regret. I left you, let Lila tear us apart. I failed Ethan, I failed you, I'm sorry. Rachel's breath caught, anger surging like a tide, her mind flashing to the years of pain, Lila's taunts, Ethan's absence, the CPS officer's cold questions. Sorry doesn't fix it, she snapped, her voice trembling, her hands shaking. You walked away, Tom, you let her make me the villain. Tom's shoulders sagged, his voice barely audible. I know, I was weak, chasing something I thought I needed. I see it now, what I lost. He paused, his eyes glistening. Ethan's doing good, Rachel, that's because of you. Rachel's throat tightened, her anger warring with a creeping pity. She thought of Ethan, his laughter, his future, and the love that had carried her through the dark. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said finally, her voice low, steady, but for Ethan, I'll try. He needs you to be better. Tom nodded, his eyes wet, his voice hoarse. That's all I'm asking. Thank you. He stood, leaving as quietly as he'd come, the bell jingling in his wake. Maria watched from the counter, her smile soft but knowing. You didn't have to do that, she said, sliding into the booth. Rachel's gaze drifted to the window, where snowflakes danced under streetlights, their fleeting beauty a mirror to her fragile peace. I did it for me, too, she said, her voice quiet but firm. I'm tired of carrying him. The diner's warmth wrapped around her, the jukebox shifting to a hopeful tune, and Rachel felt a shift, as if Boise's spring was seeping into her soul. She wasn't whole yet, but she was rebuilding, one careful step at a time, with Ethan's love as her guide and the strength she'd found within herself. The Boise summer sun bathed the city in a golden glow, its warmth seeping into the cracks of Rachel Monroe's life, softening the edges of a past once sharp with pain. At 47, Rachel stood in her classroom at Centennial High School, her auburn hair streaked with silver, pulled into a loose braid that swayed as she moved between desks. Her hazel eyes alight with a purpose she'd fought years to reclaim. The classroom, with its walls plastered in student artwork and quotes from Steinbeck and Angelo, was a sanctuary, its air thick with the scent of chalk dust and possibility. Outside, the Boise River glinted through the window, its current a gentle reminder of time's flow, carrying away the wreckage of Rachel's old life, Tom Monroe's betrayal, Lila Hayes' cruelty, and the agonizing months when her son, Ethan, had turned away from her. Her apartment, once a tomb of peeling wallpaper and unpaid bills, was now a home, its walls alive with photos of Ethan's college milestones and a small garden blooming in the backyard, each flower a testament to the joy she'd cultivated from ashes. Rachel's journey had been a slow climb from the abyss. 5 years ago, her vengeance, exposing Lila's embezzlement from Tom's tech empire, Horizon Tech, had brought a fleeting triumph, but it cost her Ethan's trust, his angry departure a wound that nearly broke her. Therapy had been their bridge back, hours spent in a Boise office where truths spilled like rain, mending their bond. Ethan, now 20, was a junior at Boise State, his engineering dreams taking shape, his laughter a melody that filled Rachel's weekends. The scars remained, Ethan's hesitation before hugging her, the shadow of Tom's absence, but their love was stronger. forged in the fire of their shared pain. Rachel had found purpose in teaching, mentoring students who mirrored Ethan's younger self, lost, searching, brimming with potential. Her classroom was a stage where she wove stories of resilience, her voice steady as she guided teens through The Great Gatsby, their debates on dreams and betrayal echoing her own redemption. The apartment was a haven of small victories. Ethan's visits brought life to its rooms, his textbooks scattered on the coffee table, his sneakers by the door. Rachel kept his old baseball glove on a shelf, its leather worn from backyard games, a relic of the boy she'd fought to keep. Maria Lopez, her best friend and owner of Maria's Diner, was her anchor, their late-night talks a ritual of laughter and truth. One June evening, as the Boise sky burned with sunset hues, Maria joined Rachel in the apartment's backyard, where Rachel tended her garden, its roses and lavender swaying in the breeze. "You're glowing, chica," Maria said, handing Rachel a coffee, its steam curling like a smile. Rachel knelt in the soil, her hands dusted with earth, her laugh soft. "I'm just happy, Maria," she said, her voice warm, steady. "Ethan's good, I'm good." Maria's brown eyes twinkled, her voice teasing. "That's more than good, that's a miracle." After everything, Rachel's smile deepened, her fingers brushing a rose petal, its softness a mirror to the peace she'd found. But peace hadn't come easily. Rachel's heart still stirred at the memory of Tom's apology months ago at Maria's Diner. His lined face raw with regret for leaving her, for letting Lila tear their family apart. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she'd told him, her voice steady but laced with old pain. "But for Ethan, I'll try." That choice, made for her son, had freed her, loosening the chains of resentment she'd carried. Lila was a ghost now, rumored to be scraping by in Seattle, her glamour a faded dream, while Tom lived quietly in Boise, rebuilding his life, a shadow of the mogul he'd been. Rachel no longer wished them ill, their downfall was a chapter closed, its pages heavy but no longer hers to carry. She focused on Ethan, on the students who filled her days with purpose, on the life she'd built from the ruins of envy. One Sunday, Rachel and Ethan walked along the Boise River greenbelt, the path lined with cottonwoods, their leaves rustling in the summer breeze. The river sparkled, its surface catching the sun, a canvas of light and movement. Ethan, taller now, his blue eyes bright, carried a sketchpad, his fingers smudged with charcoal from doodling bridges and buildings. "I got an internship at a firm downtown," he said, his voice casual but proud, kicking a pebble along the path. Rachel's heart swelled, her smile wide. "That's incredible, Ethan," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You're gonna build something amazing." He glanced at her, his smile shy, a echo of the boy who'd once trailed her with questions. "I learned that from you, Mom," he said, his voice soft, sincere. "You kept building, even when I made it hard." Rachel's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes, but she laughed, nudging his shoulder. "You were worth every second," she said, her words a vow, the river's gentle flow a witness to their renewed bond. They paused by a bench, the greenbelt alive with joggers and families, Boise's heartbeat pulsing around them. Ethan hesitated, his voice lower. "I saw Dad last week," he said, his eyes on the river. "He's trying, to be better." Rachel's chest tightened, a flicker of old pain. But she nodded, her voice calm. "I'm glad, Ethan. He's your dad. You deserve that." Ethan's gaze met hers, grateful, and he hugged her, his arms strong, the embrace a bridge across their past. "Thanks, Mom," he whispered, and Rachel held him, her tears silent, her heart full. The cottonwoods swayed, their leaves whispering of forgiveness, and Rachel felt the last of her anger dissolve, carried away by the river's current. Back at the apartment, Rachel hosted a small dinner, the table crowded with Maria, Ethan, and a few of Rachel's students, their laughter mingling with the clink of glasses. The garden's flowers, visible through the window, glowed under string lights, their petals vibrant against the Boise dusk. Maria raised a glass of iced tea, her voice warm. "To Rachel," she said, her eyes shining, "the strongest woman I know." Ethan grinned, adding, "To Mom, who never gave up." Rachel's cheeks flushed, her laugh soft but genuine. "To all of you," she said, her voice steady, "for reminding me what matters." The room buzzed with warmth, the scent of grilled chicken and lavender filling the air, and Rachel felt a quiet joy, hard-won and true. Later, alone in her garden, Rachel knelt in the soil, her hands tending the roses, their thorns no longer a threat but a reminder of her strength. The Boise skyline twinkled beyond, its lights a constellation of possibility, no longer a reminder of loss but a canvas for her future. She thought of Tom's apology, of Ethan's hug, of the students who called her Ms. Monroe with respect. The envy that had once consumed her was gone, replaced by a love that had weathered the storm. "I made it," she whispered, her voice soft, the stars above Boise her witnesses. The roses swayed in the breeze, their scent a promise of tomorrow. And Rachel stood, her heart light, her joy as quiet and enduring as the city she called home. If you find the story interesting, please like and share this video and leave a comment with your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Revenge and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos.